welcome back to Pop Culture Graveyard. I am Hollis. With me, as always, is Dave. Hello, Dave.
Bonjour, Papa.
I love it. Well, as you might have been able to surmise from Dave's hello, we are covering 1979's Breaking Away, a wonderful, beautiful coming-of-age story from the heartland of this country, Bloomington, Indiana. When was the first time you saw Breaking Away, Dave?
Oh, it would be hard to say. I think I saw it as a kid, but I couldn't say whether it was in the theater or maybe like on a Blu-ray at a rich friend's house.
Oh my
You know?
God. That is not the way to see this movie.
Laser disc,
Laser disc. Okay, that's
Yeah.
even better. I like that better.
That's what I mean.
Wow. At some college kid's house?
At some rich kid's house, yeah.
You cutter.
But yeah, and then I saw it again a few years ago. This was probably my third viewing.
Oh, that's crazy
I know,
to me.
It's a shame.
That's crazy to me.
Shocked how good it is.
I saw this movie for the first time as a kid, having older sisters. There was my one sister, a year later, another sister, and then 7 years, and then me. So there were times I felt I had three moms. And I grew up watching whatever my sisters wanted to watch. And they loved this movie. And if you know this movie, you can tell why. First of all, it's a brilliant, brilliant movie. It's about real things. It's about what people want and what they are railing against and what they can't get.
And what they're stuck with.
What they're stuck with and what they have to watch just out of reach. Also, it features four young men who, it's almost like a boy band, whatever my older sisters were watching. One liked one guy, one liked another guy. And no matter what viewer you are and for what reason you're watching it, you pick one of the guys in that group as your guy.
We pick Cyril.
And we pick Cyril.
Yeah.
We are big Daniel Stern fans. Dave has referred to this movie as Daniel Stern's Breaking Away.
I'm sticking to that.
Yeah, I think there's a reason for it too. First of all, Dave coined that term when we were doing our Home Alone episode, where we were both singing the praises of Daniel Stern and his surreal acting style. Dave brought up a chunk of dialogue from this movie where Daniel Stern, his character Cyril, muses about how wonderful it would be to be a cartoon character. This being his first film role, that's exactly how he comes across. He's this kind of gawky, galonking figure who just is very cartoonish. And it seems to be setting the tone for Daniel Stern's acting style and everything after this. He's like way over the top, and yet somehow he's super realistic and you take him at face value. He's never something you don't believe on screen. It's kind of a real acting feat. The only thing close to that is Nicolas Cage. And he's always over the top and he's never realistic.
That's a great example. Yeah. Him and Nicolas Cage are two sides of the same coin in their cartoonishness, but very different in how Daniel Stern is like, I totally believe this guy. And I think it's Kismet-esque or whatever. There's some Kismet in there that this first movie, he says, get hit in the face with a frying pan. And then in Home Alone, he gets hit in the face with everything.
Yeah, it's a nice callback.
And he is a guy who can go boing and put his face back to normal.
Right.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
There are four characters in this movie who are the main leads. One is Mike, who is the leader of this small group of guys, played by Dennis Quaid, who would have a long career in Hollywood as a leading man. Dennis Christopher. I keep thinking I'm going to say Father Mulcahy's name.
William Christopher.
Okay, good. So I got it right. There's Dennis Christopher. I was terrified I was going to say William Christopher, who is Father Mulcahy on MASH. And he is Dave Stoller. He is a bicycle rider. He's constantly winning awards and trophies. And he has willed himself to be Italian because that's where all the great bicyclists in his estimation live and are born. There is Moocher, who is 5 foot if he's lucky, played by Jackie Earle Haley, who you're missing out if you're not watching on YouTube. Dave is wearing a Bears Chico Bail Bonds uniform.
Let freedom ring, baby.
Yeah, where Kelly Leak played Jackie Earl Haley's character in that franchise.
He probably went from Bad News Bears to Breaking Away.
Yes.
I mean, that's a guess, but almost certainly.
Yeah. After
Yeah.
breaking training, where are you going to go? By the quarry. So Moocher's character has a chip on his shoulder and he's very angry with his lot in life, but he is fiercely loyal to his friends and has a real sweetheart, as we see through his relationship with his girlfriend. And finally, that brings us to Cyril, played by Daniel Stern. This was his film debut, and he nailed it. And pretty much set the prototype for every other Daniel Stern performance after this. His acting style, as we said, very cartoon-like.
Yeah, lanky and lovable. That's Daniel Stern. He laid it down. And I wound up seeing a couple of things where Daniel Stern, between this and Home Alone, where Daniel Stern says, yeah, that's me. That's me, you see.
Well, I was going to say, for right out of the gate, for a film debut, to look as natural and to feel as natural as he does on camera. And if it's even closer to his own persona, I know it sounds to people who don't understand acting like that's easier. That's harder.
Yeah, that's harder. Yeah.
You know, to pull way back on the throttle, to not pull any tricks out of your bag.
It's hard to be yourself intentionally. You can't do it. It's easier to pretend to be someone else. It really is.
Yeah. So Daniel Stern's Breaking Away has been a favorite movie of ours for quite some time. I'm still very sick for anyone who's interested. And that is why I'm forgetting things.
That's worth mentioning. Hollis has what might be brain fog.
This film was directed by Peter Yates, and it was written by Steve Tessich, who wrote one of the most brilliant screenplays of all time. I have this screenplay. The draft I have is called Bambino. It's from 1978, named in honor of Dave Stoller's character. His character is still named Dave Blaze. And Dave Blaze was the name of the actual bicyclist who Steve Tessich was influenced by, the great bicyclist at their university who won the Little 500 and who did 139 of the laps out of the 200 himself. So I just wanted to get that in. This is based on a true story. It's a wonderful screenplay, and it's very, very funny.
Yeah, it's got great humor. It wins on a lot of levels. Comedy's one of them.
I first saw this because I mentioned my older sisters. My sister, Sarah, was the first one to have a VCR in our family. She bought it specifically so she could tape the TV shows and movies she loved. And this one, I think Breaking Away, for a while it was playing on PBS every now and again, and that's where she taped it. I can't tell you how many times I watched this film. It wore out the tape. I wanted to be these guys. I wanted to be friends with these guys. I wanted to grow up to have this kind of camaraderie with friends. And when you get older, you realize how rare this even is, if you're lucky enough to have it.
Yeah, and I was watching it saying, I have exactly this. What year did the movie come out? 79?
79.
Yeah. I'm not saying when I watched it when it came out, but later watching it, I was like, this is me. This is me down to swimming where the rich kids don't swim.
Wow.
And hanging out and having cars that were primer gray because we were planning on making them nice.
Yeah.
Even the cars that were primer gray from getting them
until they died on you.
Them. Yeah. Any guy with a primer gray car in my high school, you could say to him, what color is it going to be? And they'd be like, oh, candy apple green.
Oh,
I got this cherry red picked out.
Yeah, you might as well pick out an expensive color because you're never going to have to cash that check.
Nobody ever painted it. Yeah. So I really love that Skylark that Mike drove was perfect.
It's great.
Absolutely perfect.
That was every car for a while that the older kids would drive by. Just that shape, that muscle car, that big in the back.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that Mercedes 260 convertible was very indicative of the people we didn't get along with.
I never saw that car in my neighborhood.
Yeah.
So one of the millions of things that's great about this movie is it captures a time and an age for guys that isn't often commemorated. It's 19. These guys are 19 In Vietnam, the average age was
19.
19, as Paul Hardcastle would tell us. But Cyril brings it up. He's like 16, and you're sweet 16. 18, you can watch dirty movies and vote and drink. What's 19? You
Mm,
know, we catch these guys also at the end of a rudderless year where they wanted to do nothing together, and they did. And we're seeing that nothing inspires nothing. They don't know what to do outside of continue this odd pact they have to not work at the AMP anymore and to not do anything. Everyone else their age is either in college or working, cutting stone down at the foundry. Where do you cut stone? They even swim in a hole that was hollowed out by their fathers back when they
yeah,
were
that's
working the quarry.
and the quarry's introduced with panning shots of cut stone.
It's
And
beautiful.
yeah, and it's a beautiful thing that their fathers gave them because they're having this sort of free and easy summer
Hmm.
that their hardworking fathers gave them, and they're swimming in a hole that their fathers cut in the ground. You could completely miss that and enjoy the film 100%. It's just this nice metaphorical imagery. It stands for something. You don't need to know, but it stands for what their fathers did.
I kind of see the quarry as this man-made beautiful occurrence that they use for leisure and they use to put off work. And it is really what's left behind from the ultimate work that their fathers did to afford them a better life so that
Yeah,
they could do
exactly.
what? Lie by the quarry? That's not what their dads had in mind. And to me, also, this quarry is looming over them and is almost pulling them in and being like, it's this constant reminder that they're not working as hard as their dads did. Work is the only thing waiting for them when they're done dicking around. So it's this kind of like thing where, when you have work to do and then you're like, you know what, let me just take a break and take 3 hours to myself, but you can enjoy it. All you're thinking about is what's waiting for you on the desk or whatever. That to me just seems like their whole summer. And you see the pressure when Dave goes home, when his character goes home to his parents. And you're sure all the other guys are getting that kind of pressure from their parents. It's just, what are you going to do? Is the summer over yet? Okay. What's next? What's next? What's
Mhm.
next?
They're talking about it while they're hanging out.
Mhm.
Moocher's talking about his dad in Chicago who he thinks is going to find work. And if he
Mhm.
does find work, he might go out there too. And so their topic of conversation, how are we going to find a job where we can all work together?
That's the thing too. These guys, I mean, it's fine when you're 14, 15 and you're like, "Hey, they'll take all of us." And then you have this camaraderie or whatever, but like the bond in these guys, I don't know that I've ever seen a bond outside of actual family members portrayed in a film that was this strong. These guys only want to work together. And when one of
Mm,
them gets fired, Mike, the rest of them all quit in
mhm.
solidarity. It's pretty
Yeah, and
crazy.
I want to point out that I think that Moocher is an unfair nickname for what seems like the hardest working guy in the group and the most income conscious guy. And Moocher is the only one actively trying to get another job.
Mhm.
Moocher is keeping an eye on his dad in Chicago, looking for a job. Moocher wants to provide for a family as soon as possible. And his name is Moocher, and that bugs me a little. But
Well,
I'm, sh-
we don't
it's
we
nice to
don't
know
kn
he came so far.
we don't know how he got that name. It could be
No, I
ironic,
know.
like a big guy named
Yeah.
Tiny. It could be just like, "This guy'll give you the shirt off his back," and they call him Moocher.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, we see a few things off the bat. Mike used to be a quarterback. He was on the same track as a lot of these college kids. He did not get a scholarship. Mike gets a scholarship. This is a very different movie. Dave is championship level bicyclist. He's constantly got a trophy in his hand. Cyril, we learn later through something Dave's father says that Cyril is a generational slacker and,
Yeah.
kind of offbeat character. His father was not much use at the quarry, from what Dave's dad says. And Moocher, he has absentee parents. His dad, anyway, went to Chicago to look for work. There's a lot more jobs there, but he still hasn't found anything. And Moocher's alone at the house trying to sell it.
He left his kid home to sell the house.
And the house does not look sellable. It
looks like a squatting situation.
Yeah.
It's not great.
And Moocher doesn't seem to complain. He just works out inside that house. And he's got a girlfriend, Nancy, who he is a lot closer to than he will admit in front of his friends. So none of these guys want to work. At one point, they drop off Moocher after the quarry because he has a job he's starting at a gas station.
It's a car wash, actually.
Car wash. And he's a bit late, and the guy is like, well, I guess you won't let that happen again.
Don't forget to punch the clock,
Shorty. That's right.
And hands him a rag.
He wraps the towel around his fist, and he punches the clock, breaking the clock.
Great.
Much to the joy of his friends. He then hops in the car, and they head back out on their next adventure.
They're all hanging out of the windows like, yeah.
Oh, it's great.
Because they didn't want him to take the job, and they want to keep the endless summer going. It's a fantastic scene. And they're mad at Moocher as he's going in, like, oh, why are you leaving us? Except for Dave. Of course, Dave is like, hey, man, I appreciate you doing what you got to do.
Yeah.
Also, the clock. I'd love to know how many of those clocks they punched, because it is gorgeous how Moocher destroys this clock with a quick jab. It's beautiful.
It tells you something about Moocher, too. There's a couple of times when he throws a punch and he wraps his hand every time. He's trained as a boxer, and he doesn't want to hurt his hand because then he can't punch anymore. So he
doesn't punch without a wrap. Yeah.
No. Yeah. And he does damage when he swings. I guess the other main characters that we meet are Dave Stoller's parents, who are played by Paul Dooley in one of the greatest comic performances ever, and our beloved Barbara Barry, who played Hal Linden's wife on Barney Miller.
Which I didn't realize until this watch.
You know what else you probably didn't realize? Barbara Barry, still with us.
Ah, yeah, good.
She's in her early 90s, and we love you, Barbara Barry. Right away, they set the tone. This feels like a real home that Dave Stoller is coming into. His dad runs Campus Cars, the used car lot in town, and he is the typical used car salesman. He is always pushing some horrible cream puff car onto someone. It later breaks down and he will not refund the money. That is every car on his lot, apparently. As much as you see the cantankerousness of this character, you feel that there's real love in the house. Don't get me wrong, he's driven to distraction by his son and wants him to get a job, and is driven up a wall by his son pretending to be Italian. And he's upset at his wife, humoring the son about this. Every time there's any kind of food that is vaguely Italian, it's like, that's Heidi food.
Anything that ends in "ini," he won't even eat zucchini because it ends in an "ini" like linguine.
Yeah.
And he wants American food, like French fries.
I know. That's the best line. It's like, I want American food, God damn it. I want French fries.
It's a great role because he walks this tightrope between being farcically comical, but he's not. He's realistically comical because he has to be believable. He can't be a joke of a character. And he's cantankerous and he's rough on his son, but you can tell the love is there, the patience is there. One of the reasons I love this movie is you never have to deal with feeling so bad for Dave Stoller that his dad is so mean. His dad isn't mean at all. His dad is very kind. And that is more and more exposed as the movie goes on, which just makes you feel better and better.
So the big love story at the heart of this movie is between Dave and Catherine, or Katarina, as he calls her, played by Robin Douglas. She is a campus queen. She is a college girl who is dating the ultimate douchebag, Rod, played by Hart Bochner.
He's even named Rod.
Hart Bochner is off the fucking chain in this. He is so good as the ultimate douchebag college boy. There is nothing about him that is generous or humble or sweet-natured. He is 100% patriarchy entitlement right out of the gate, and he never lets up on the throttle until the very end of the film.
I was going to say, but also there's probably two fractional instances of humanity in Rod, but
Okay.
there's two. Yeah.
All right. PJ Souls also has a tiny part as a sorority sister of Catherine's character, who alerts Rod at one point that Dave is serenading her.
When will PJ Souls learn to stay off the phone?
Yeah, got her killed in Halloween.
I'm going to take a still of her on the phone and put a ghost behind her with glasses. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah. The serenading scene. Dave, who believes he's Neapolitan, is going to sing this gorgeous Italian lyrical love song to Catherine, who's at her window, and he brings Cyril with him. Cyril has learned to accompany him on the guitar. There's this moment in the serenading where it reaches the climax and he turns and he sings along, Marta, Marta.
Cyril does backing vocals.
I love, and Dave looks at him just like
hey man,
like we didn't rehearse that.
This
like
is a solo.
But Cyril's feeling it, and
Yeah.
it's so good. And Dave takes off with her. They go on a bike ride, and Cyril gets his applause. All the girls are raining. It's this rare moment in the sun for Cyril, and I love that he has that. And it's quickly, like everything else in Cyril's life, it's quickly followed by a big fall because Rod and his friends show up in his convertible and beat the crap out of him.
Not on camera.
I'm glad we don't have to see it.
Yeah. And I think these are very intentional choices. This movie, it never makes you suffer. It makes you worry about people a little bit, but it doesn't make you suffer through a beating. What it gives you is a morning with a black eye.
Yeah.
And immediately saying like, oh, I'm all right. Don't worry about me. I'm okay. You know, and I really appreciate that. I don't want to watch such a nice guy get hit by people. And it doesn't do that. And I appreciate it.
Yeah. And then there's a fight on campus when Mike forces Cyril to go and find the guys that did this to him. And so Mike
during the serenade.
Yeah. And so Mike, Cyril, and Moocher head to campus. They go to the student union to find the guys. And Dave just coincidentally happens to be there under the guise of being this Italian guy talking with Caterina.
Foreign exchange student, I believe.
Foreign exchange. Right? That's right. Foreign exchange student. A fight breaks out when they find out that Rod is there. It's great. Moocher ends up punching Rod right in the face.
Because Rod says shorty. It's the one thing Rod you don't say to Moocher. Shorty.
While they're there in the student union, at one point, there's a bowling alley. Cyril gets his hand stuck in a ball, as only Cyril could. And he looks like a cartoon animal that has a ball at the end of his hand. When the fight breaks out, Cyril swings that ball around.
To his advantage. Yeah.
Yeah, he hits one guy in the chest or stomach, and he scares off a group of 20 with it. Mike ends up getting the worst of the fight, it seems. Moocher gets a couple of hits in, but then Moocher is taken over. It's basically these three guys versus the entire campus, so they couldn't possibly win. But luckily, security comes in the form of Mike's brother, who is a cop, and his partner, which puts an end to it. And then we see the college kids all called into the dean's office, and they're read the riot act. You know, he says something like, if you're going to force yourselves to compete with the town kids, then we're going to find a better venue, and they're going to allow a team from the town in their little 500 bike race that the college has every year.
I thought that was a cool method to get them in the race. In a lesser movie, it would have been, we looked at the rule book and we can get in the race.
Right.
We found a way to get in the college race.
We'll show them. I know what we'll do. Yeah.
Yeah. And this was much more believable. And it also gave a moment to show that like people are aware that the townies or cutters or indigenous people do suffer at the hands of these snooty college kids. The college administrators know it. The police know it. The parents know it. Everyone knows it, except for maybe Rod. So it was a nice acknowledgement.
Yeah, I mean, Rod, here's how big of a douchebag Rod is. He can't even shut his mouth while they're being disciplined. The second that the dean says that they're going to let them, or the president of the college or whatever, it's like somebody Rod should not talk back to says we're going to let them in this bike race. He goes, but sir, they're not good enough. It's like he cannot shut up. He's so used to getting his way. He's so privileged. I fucking hate this guy. And Hart
Is he the
Bachner,
one that says Cutter started it?
yeah, he does. He says it to the brother of the cutter who's pulling him off. So yeah, but Hart Bachner is perfect. He's genetically perfect. He's a beautiful looking actor. And I'm shocked that Hart Bachner hasn't had a better career. He just took some really crazy parts over the years, not good parts. His best part after this is another douchebag.
I'm not surprised.
Is the cokehead in Die Hard. Hey, Hans.
No.
Booby. Yeah.
Oh, that guy is so good.
He's so good, but he's so good at this one thing that you only need every once in a while.
What am I, method actor? Put the gun away. He is so good.
I'm probably doing him a disservice. He probably did fucking Hamlet at the Globe, but like I've seen some other
Hart
pictures.
Bachner. I did not know that. That's nice to know.
And he's made some bad choices, or he had bad management or something. And there was a whole 20 years where he worked with a mustache, and they just don't hire people with a mustache, Dave.
Unless you're a dick in Meatballs, he would have been another great dick in Meatballs,
right?
Asshole in Meatballs.
So we have the setup. They were going to allow a team of bicyclists to join the race against all the college kids, the Little 500, and this team will be called the Cutter Team. And Dave's parents give them all T-shirts that they had made up that say Cutter on them, which is the nickname for the townies or the rednecks or the just regular rank and file Indiana denizens by the college kids.
Just iron-on letters, just black letters on a white T-shirt. That's it.
Perfect. At first, Dave doesn't want to race because it's the Little 500. Fuck them. He's used to racing in much more prestigious events.
That's his cover.
That's his cover.
If he's on the Cutter Team, he's a cutter. And if he's a cutter, Katerina will know he's not a foreign exchange student.
Yep. And it's not like he can hide. The idea amongst all his friends is for Dave to do every single lap of the race by himself. That's 200
They literally
laps,
say it. We'll just, all four of us will join and he'll run the whole race. He'll
and
ride
win
the whole race. Yeah.
That's what you get for bringing a trophy to the quarry every fucking 2 weeks. They expect you to win every race. So one of the things Dave is super excited about is that the Italians are coming. Team Cinzano. These 4 Italian bicyclists who have a team. They win everything in Europe, and they're coming to race in a small race in Indianapolis or wherever. Dave is so excited, and he trains, and he's like, this will be great. I'm going to show them that I'm one of them. In the race, Dave quickly, as always, separates himself from the pack. And after a while, it's just Team Cinzano and him. And for a little while, these guys actually, they mess with Dave. They mess with his gears. He survives that and keeps going. He tries talking to them in Italian. They want nothing to do with him. They curse him. And after a while, it seems like they're going to be nice to him. They're like, go ahead. And as he goes, one of them sticks a tire pump in his spokes. And Dave ends up getting knocked out of the race and skinning up his leg. Dave is, of course, hurt physically, but he's more wounded emotionally. And he comes home and he collapses in tears in his dad's arms with the realization that everybody cheats. And he's doing this to his car salesman father, who cheats every day. And his dad is like, whoa, it's good you found out about that. But his dad then is touched and realizes the boy's really wounded and calls for his mom.
Build the dad's compassion as the movie goes. And it's one of the moments where I wanted you to be miserable, but not this miserable.
Yeah, because his son is a dreamer. And the father knows that the kid is just setting himself up for pain and anguish if all he does is dream about a better world than this one. So he wants some realism in the kid, but he doesn't want the kid crushed.
Yeah.
That Team Cinzano thing, I remember as a kid, that deeply disturbed me, but also frightened me. I was like, if you like them, why would they do this?
Mm-hmm.
If they're your heroes, if you show them how much you love them, it was scary to me. I was just as disillusioned as his character.
This movie has bad guys, and it's those 4 guys.
Yeah.
Those are the bad guys.
And I wouldn't let Rod off the hook.
No, come on. Rod is just he's a product of his upbringing.
Oh, don't you fucking do that. He's a douchebag who has had everything handed to him. He's had it easy his whole life. And every time he steps on somebody, his buddies giggle. And so he steps harder next time.
Yeah.
Fuck Rod.
Well, I just don't want to take away from how bad these Italians are. They are the Nazgul of this movie.
Oh my God.
No, I mean, it's the point. It's supposed to crush Dave Stoller's fantasy, how beautiful the world is because of Team Cinzano, and to have that crumble.
Also, this whole Italian thing was the wedge between him and his parents, between him and the rest of the quote unquote cutters. It's also something between him and Catherine that he later has to drop this facade. And so Team Cinzano, say what you want about them, they served their purpose and they brought Dave back into who he was. You know?
Yeah, I think he calls his father Dad instead of Papa.
Yeah.
Immediately after this. Yeah, he drops the Italian accent.
He does. So Team Cinzano happens. So Dave is so disillusioned. He's back to speaking English. He tells the truth to Catherine. Anyway, Moocher, I believe, is the one who tells him that he should be straight with her. Catherine does not accept it. She smacks him. She feels lied to and humiliated.
She does a nice job in that scene.
She does. Robin Douglas.
It's a small scene in like a gazebo or something. And he comes clean to her and she starts with, stop playing around. Come on, it's Katerina. And he's like, no, it was a lie. It's not much room there, but she does a journey from, I don't believe you, to, oh my God, you are telling the truth, to, that makes me really sad, to, you know what, that also makes me very angry.
Yeah, how could you?
And then she storms off. She does a great job. Like,
yeah, she does.
It's just this tight spot to get all that across, and she does it.
Okay, the big race. The Little 500 begins, and Dave is the lead racer. The 3 other dudes are just sitting on the side and fully expect Dave to win. Dave is, for about 100 laps, doing a great impression of someone who's about to win. He's, of course, doing what he does. He's lapping the field. He's taking a commanding lead, and he's not letting go. And at some point, midway through the race, he ends up colliding with another bike, injures himself, and one of the other 3 have to take a turn.
And it seems obvious.
It seems obvious that Mike should hop
one
on
of them
that bike.
Is ripped.
One of them was an athlete who used to train every season to be a quarterback.
Dennis Quaid, Mike.
Yep. He will not get on the bike.
Great scene, because Mike has a fear of failure.
And it shows you just how deep that fear of failure is. When push comes to shove, he will not do it for love of his friends. That's not what's going to get him on the bike. Moocher then takes a turn on the bike, at which point the Rod character is just in hysterics laughing at him.
Yeah, I mean, and you can see Moocher has trouble reaching the pedals.
He does. It's so sweet, though, that he's out there trying. Yeah. And this is something he can't punch. He's just got to ride it. He can channel that raw aggression into the bike.
But it's not going to give him longer legs. It's not going to make him a cyclist.
No, it's not.
But he gives it everything. It's wonderful.
He does. He gives it everything. And he goes around and he starts losing the lead that Dave has built up. And then Cyril has to hop on the bike. Cyril, who is all gangly legs, at one point, the bike comes in again.
Yeah, the bike comes in because Cyril's exhausted. One lap exhausts these guys.
He's dead. So Cyril, I believe, does 2 laps.
Possibly 2.
He does one, signals.
Does one, signals, I can't do another, and comes around a second time.
I was just going to say, it shows you how out of shape Cyril is, but it also shines a light on how special Dave is.
Yeah.
because he did 100 without blinking. So Cyril brings it in. God bless Rod, because as he's going around, he like smiles at Mike and says something like, "Hey, nice try," or something. That's what does it. Competition, the competitive, the kind of like fuck you from the college boy. That's what gets him up. And that's when he takes a turn. And Mike shows that he used to be an athlete. And once an athlete, always an athlete. So
Also,
much so that the announcer actually comments on it.
And all of this is adding to the believability, because you're starting to think that, like, after Cyril's ride and after Moocher's ride, how could they possibly come back? But all the math fits. Dave gets that commanding lead. Moocher and Cyril lose that lead, but keep them in the race. And Mike begins the job of regaining the position. So it all fits mathematically, lap-wise.
No, it's deftly done. It really is. For those of you who are paying attention, and even if you're not, it just works out fine. During the amount of time all this has been going on, Dave's father, who was listening on the radio at the car lot, actually drove his way down there and is with Mom. And it's the sweetest thing. You know, they're there together, and it's like, well, he tried. Even the announcer said he tried. Like,
I heard,
yeah. And so Dave is like he's looking at his friends, he's looking at his parents, he's feeling down about himself, and he has to get back on that bike.
I think Moocher says, like, we still showed him. We showed him.
Showed him what?
Yeah, showed him what?
Yeah. Come on, Mike, bring it in. I'm getting emotional thinking about it, because it's so beautiful. Dave realizes in that moment why he races, why he started racing, what he gets from racing, what racing means to him, you know, how it's this solitary thing, how he can better himself every time. He's only competing with himself, and he knows it. And he's like, if I can race my best race, I can fix everything. I can help them. I can help them. It's great. And so, such a great moment. His friends tape his feet to the pedals of the bike so that he will not be able to transfer anymore. It's just going to be him to the end of the race. And it's great. They're taping him onto the bike, and Rod's character sees this and yells, "He's getting back in the race!" Like, it's understood.
The nervousness.
The nervousness.
Yeah. He's a real threat. He's an obvious threat. Yeah.
It's so good. So Dave is back in the race, and he slowly begins turning it on and retaking the lead. And then he's only behind Rod's character. The white flag goes, and there's one lap to go, and it's just the two of them racing for it. It's so perfectly captured. It seems like a real bike race. You know, Hart Bachner and Dennis Christopher are real athletes. They really trained for this. And it's totally believable. I mean, I don't think I'm giving anything away. Dave Stoller takes him by a wheel, noses out Rod for the win.
Yeah, takes him by a wheel, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, the word triumphant fits.
You're talking to someone who dislikes sports movies.
Yeah.
I got no time for Rudy. I really don't. I don't care about, to me, a sports movie is maybe Bad News Bears. And you know what? It occurs to me as I'm saying this, the reason I like Bad News Bears and the reason I like Breaking Away as my sports movies, someone might say, oh, I see, you like the underdog. Most sports movies are underdogs. It's not the underdog I like. It's the real people, the people who aren't athletes. That's what I like about the Cutters. They're not athletes. I know Dave is, but he's not the type of athlete that I associate. Growing up, I associated athletes with assholes. Yeah. Athletes wore jackets, and anyone in those jackets was usually an asshole. Pushed me around, was mean to other people, treated everyone around them poorly except themselves, with a blue jacket with the white sleeves and the numbers on them. I didn't like those people, and they were constantly showing me why.
One of these days, Dave, you're going to hit your growth spurt, and you're going to show those guys.
I'm going to show those guys. So I'm Cyril growing up, and all these, you know, those guys are being joined. And some of those guys turned out to be decent guys, and some of them turned out to be dicks, you know, because some of them might be listening. But But it's true.
Fuck you.
Some of them turned out all right, and some of them
Yeah.
stormed the Capitol. One of them stormed the Capitol in his varsity
It
jacket.
is varsity.
Yeah, which is
Ah,
what I informed the FBI of.
oh,
Yeah.
God. Mr. President, they're not good enough.
But my point is, I like to watch the Cutters beat the college athletes. That works for me.
Yeah, this movie rewards you in a way not a lot of other coming of age movies reward you, because you like these guys and you're rooting for these guys from the very beginning. And yet, you're not seeing anything about these guys. You're not seeing the tools. You're not seeing anything productive they're working towards that leads you to believe, outside of Dave, that they're going to be better off when the film ends than they were beforehand. This is such a beautiful treat because even for Dave Stoller's character, he took this thing that he used to do that was all his.
Mm.
His friends would go see him race. They'd drop him off at the race. They'd see the trophy or whatever.
His friend even kept a bike rack on his car.
Yeah, his friend kept it. I mean, they're so
Yeah.
supportive. But when he's out there racing, it's just him. And this was the first time that his friends were able to partake of that world with him and that they were able to share that somehow. And the fact that they were all able to use that to better their place in that world where they feel so rudderless and they can't find a place to purchase, that's just extra sweet.
Yeah. And now think about the dad. Think about the father who, through the entire movie, is essentially thinking in the back of his mind, what is my kid ever going to do with this bicycle bullshit? This bicycle stuff, the chances of him making a living with it are almost nothing. It doesn't accomplish anything. And then it does. And it also points to how great that scene in the dean's office, where we find out that everyone agrees that locals have a lower status and feel that the college community looks down on them. So the victory of the Cutters is a victory for the entire population of non-college people from this town.
Right.
The police, and they show it. They cut to the police celebrating. You can tell the townies in the stands.
Oh, there are
super
some
tan,
guys,
those hippie
you need to
guys
give
and
some of
stuff.
those extras an extra
Yeah.
dollar because they
Yeah.
just, that one big dude with the mustache and the big smile
That's
looking like Gibby
exactly who I'm
Haynes from the
talking about.
Butthole Surfers.
And they
Yeah.
show him because it's a victory for the town.
It is.
It's
Although
it's a
there's one thing that doesn't ring true. And I know that they had to like fake this and that, you know, the crowd noise couldn't coincide at all times with other things. But the Cutters, when their team name is announced, they don't get any kind of recognition, applause. There's no kind of, I get it that it's like they paint it that it's the college turf.
right.
But we saw the guys in the stands. And at the end, the big ovation. They should have sound design let me down there. There should have been some
Yeah.
sort of pop,
Yeah,
as the
at least they're
wrestlers
like,
say.
tell him, bro. Tell
Yeah,
him,
yeah.
Cyrus.
Tell him, Cyrus. Yeah, that
But
was
yeah, the
good.
victory it's a victory for all.
It is. And I'm
yeah.
reminded too, at one point, the father says something derogatory about the son in the house regarding the cycling. And the wife, Barbara Barry, says he was so sickly before he started riding that bike, or he was so depressed before he started riding that bike. Something. He was like all his friends probably until that bike came into his life. And it gave him something to channel all of his energy into positively. But that was a nice thing. Also, at the end, I don't know if you noticed, but the father's used car lot, it used to be Campus Cars, and now it's Cutter Cars.
Ah,
And
I didn't notice, and
Yep.
that's wonderful.
And
Pride. He brought
yeah.
pride back.
He brought the pride. Does Indianapolis want the pride back? Also, Barbara Barry's character, Stoller's mom, is pregnant and working at the lot.
Yes,
And
I
his
saw
dad
that.
is now riding a bike.
Which is
Great
good for his
scene,
heart. He has heart trouble.
which is good for his heart. It's great.
Yeah.
But also what a big impact that had on everybody in the town, not just his dad. That he would change his lot and he would start bicycling. It's like it's the
It
new
actually had a
thing.
big impact on America. It launched a cycling thing.
Yeah, it did.
And then another movie came not long after it. I forget, it was like Free Flyers or something like that.
American Flyers, also
American
written by
Flyers.
Steve Tessich,
Oh, okay.
starring Kevin Costner. So anyway, then there's a closing scene. Dave is now in college. He had taken the exams and he got into the university, and he meets a French foreign exchange student or just a student from France. And she is one of the most beautiful women I've ever seen in my life. Like, they really went overboard to make this impactful for his character. And she asks him where the bursar's office is.
Where the office of the bursar.
Yes.
Like the office of the, I don't know what "of the" is in French, but the office of the bursar. It's funny how long it takes him to put it together.
He goes, great.
Oh, you mean bursar's office.
Yeah. Anyway, they begin riding together, and he's like, oh, you don't know the French? Oh, mon Dieu. And suddenly he's speaking.
The French cycling team is very...
They're the best, the best in the world.
Yeah.
And so he passes by his dad going the other way on a bike and says, hey, son. And he goes, bonjour, papa. And it's understood that now Dave is French.
And then, again, Paul Dooley, he turns around. In fact, that's the ending of the movie. Paul Dooley turns around wide-eyed like, oh, no, not again.
A double take on his craning neck on the bike. Yeah. He'll probably crash said
He'll
bike.
Probably hit something,
and wind up in the bed again with the doctor there. But it is such a beautiful comedic way to bring down the curtain on this little mini masterpiece, this little 500 of a movie. You watch some movies that won the Academy Award for Best Screenplay 50 years later, and you're kind of like, all right, I guess they got swept up in the fever of whatever. But this is a crackling script. It's real. It has many victories along the way. It has major victories at the end. It has characters under pressure. It has characters changing. It has arcs. It has something to say. This is a fantastic script, brilliantly realized, perfectly cast. How often do all those things come together, especially in Hollywood?
I bet a lot of people watch this movie when they're having a hard time. I know that some people have like comfort movies and stuff. I bet there's a bunch of people who put on Breaking Away. And folks, if you're listening, I can find something in any movie that says, well, once you get over this, you'll be happy, or yeah, that's a hard part to deal with. But
or you have to watch around this character.
Yeah. This movie, if you're looking for a feel-good movie that's worth it and not just sappy, this is it. This is such a feel-good movie. And you by now you're starting to know me as the guy who loves happy ending movies and happy movies. This movie is so good and happy and kind without being fake. In fact, it's one of the realest portrayals of America I've ever seen. It is a fantastic portrayal of American life in the 70s, probably, I guess I'd have to say.
Yeah, it's true. Authentic.
I wanted to mention that at the end, in Daniel Stern's Breaking Away, it's Daniel Stern who stands alone.
I love that moment. Their victory. Dave is there with his parents. Moocher is there with his girlfriend. Mike is there with his brother. And Daniel Stern just is like turning around, clapping, and just by himself. Like he signals to Dave at one point. But
I feel like maybe he's even like, because he's turning and looking, I feel like maybe he's keeping an eye out for his dad, who perhaps is not there.
Right.
His dad is always so nice when he fails.
Yeah. He couldn't be nice to him now because he was victorious.
His dad's not there because his dad's not good at victory because he didn't have any. I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah.
But it's a Daniel Stern moment. The movie doesn't end, but the race ends on a Daniel Stern moment. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's lovely. Okay. I'm so glad we could do this movie. In closing, everyone, no matter whether you like sports movies or not, it is a sports movie. It's not a sports movie. It's a coming of age movie. It's an already there movie. No matter how you are feeling, your mood will be enhanced after watching this movie. We highly, highly recommend it. So Daniel Stern's Breaking Away, get on it. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you, Hollis.
I will see you at the Little 500.
See you at the Little 500.
All right.
Hollis and Dave would like to thank you for enjoying Pop Culture Graveyard.